What's up everyone, welcome back and I hope you're all doing awesome today. It's time yet again for more Reddit stories about entitled people, crazy people, and everything in between. So make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet for more Reddit content, and let's get into today's stories. Cheat on your wife with mine? I will burn your life to the ground. Way back in the early 2000s, I began to suspect that my wife was up to something. Our two kids were about 4 and 6, still young, but not so young that they couldn't tell you something about what had happened in their day. They started talking about staying with my wife's parents during the day, which wasn't really that strange in and of itself, but since they lived about 90 minutes away, doing so 2 or 3 times a week seemed a bit much. That was basically every day she wasn't working at her part-time job. When I asked her about it, she denied it, but was never a good liar. So I started tracking the mileage on her car, and sure enough, she was driving an extra 400 or so miles per week. I knew some crap was going on. Then one day I sat down at the computer and she had left a sticky note with her AOL password written on it next to the keyboard. I could not resist and logged in to read her emails, and saw a few email exchanges between her and her college BFF, where they discussed how my wife was regularly sleeping with one of her ex-boyfriends from high school. No mention of details about him other than my wife also talking crap about his wife, making fun of how she'd gotten fat after having kids. Anyway, I printed out these email exchanges and stashed them. I still needed to know the details, so I called a friend who was a cop, and he suggested I call a guy he knew that had left the force to become a private investigator. Ron was great. I paid his retainer and gave him the emails and what little I knew about my wife's activities, and he figured out exactly what she was doing. His report detailed with photos and times, dates, and locations, all about how she would take the kids to her parents, then go meet this guy for lunch, then they'd go to a dumpy motel for a few hours, after which she'd pick up the kids and return home. At this point, I hired a divorce lawyer. My parents cheated on each other, and the fallout absolutely screwed mine and my siblings' childhood. It was something that was totally unacceptable. I also asked Ron to find out what he could about this guy. Ron absolutely came through. I learned his name, Bob, that he was married and had 3 kids. I also found out that he worked as a VP of sales for his father-in-law's business. At this point, I had my lawyer draw up the divorce papers. I also asked Ron for a couple more copies of his report, and I had one more thing I wanted him to do for me. On the same day I had my wife served with the divorce papers at her work, I had Ron meet with this guy's wife and show her everything he'd found out. She seemed nice, and I figured that she deserved to know what her dear hubby was up to. What she did with that information was up to her. While the information about my wife's infidelity didn't really matter in my divorce proceedings, Bob's wife did a real number on him. According to the publicly available court documents from the divorce and other related proceedings, she cleaned out their joint account, took the kids, and left. As soon as her dad found out what he'd done, Bob was fired, and since her parents actually owned the house where Bob and his wife lived, he also got evicted. Their divorce was ugly. Lots of fighting in and evidently out of court. I guess Bob went to the house and started arguing with his wife, and it escalated to the point that her brother stepped in and Bob got his nose broken. There were restraining orders, a few more incidents with police reports, criminal charges, jail time, and so on. I can't find Bob on the internet anywhere these days. Last I heard, he left the state, and his ex-wife did okay. She went to work at her dad's company and took over after he retired. As for me, my ex and I got along well enough. I didn't engage with her on anything that wasn't related to the kids, and now that they're both adults, I don't talk to her at all anymore. I don't hate her or anything, but I only care in the context that she is my kids' mom and is important to them. Nothing beyond that. Girl destroys my car and lies about it. I was driving home from the grocery store yesterday with my girlfriend and our roommate. We're not exactly mature, upstanding adults. We're all college students. I'm 22 and they're both 21. But we're all varying degrees of financially independent. We have jobs, we pay our own rent. I pay the loan on the car that's now destroyed, etc. I'm driving straight through a large but not super busy intersection, and a car speeds out in front of me to take a left while I'm already inside the intersection. I slam the brakes but can't stop in time. The front of my car collides with the side of theirs. Knees slam into the front console, airbags go off, smoke everywhere. None of us have ever been in a crash this big before. We're immediately panicking, getting out of the car, making sure each other are okay. No major injuries, but we're all pretty bruised up. Girlfriend and roommate start working on getting our groceries out of the car and finding someone to come pick us up, while I talk to the other driver and exchange information. The other driver is a 19-year-old girl, and she's sitting on the curb with a friend, while her third friend gives me her license and takes photos of my license and insurance info. She tells me the driver's mom is coming to get the documents out of the car, which is not in nearly as bad of condition as mine, and they could easily get them themselves, and she'll give those to me when she gets there. I call 911, then spend most of the next 2 hours on the phone with my insurance company trying to get a tow truck. The city ends up towing both cars away since I can't move mine out of the road. When I try to turn it on so I can move it into a parking lot out of the way, it doesn't move when I press the gas and the engine starts smoking. The other girl doesn't try to move her car, which looks to me like it's still in driving condition, albeit not great condition. The cops show up to get our statements. I tell them exactly what happened. Don't make any grand statements about who was at fault because the situation speaks for itself. I do think I said that I had the right of way, because I did. She goes to get the other girl's statement. First thing she says is, "I had the right of way." The cop clarifies, "So you had the green turn arrow?" And she says yes. I jump in to correct her and say something to the effect of, "The light was green for me." I don't know what she saw, but if she had the turn arrow, the light on my side would have been red, so I don't understand how she could have had the arrow. Cop nods and writes that down. Continues to ask clarifying questions about whether she had the green arrow, and asks if she was the only car turning, which she was. She says there were lots of cars turning in front of her. I didn't correct this one because I was just so shocked. I only fully processed that she said this after because it was such an obvious and blatant lie. At some point while we're being questioned, her mom shows up. She listens to her daughter's story, where she's claiming that she had the right of way, and I blew through a red light and drove straight into her, and believes it unquestioningly. The cop also asks if we want paramedics called. Me and my friends report all our injuries to her, but tell her it's not an immediate emergency. The driver's friend insists that her friends are in shock and need medical attention, although the friends deny it. Paramedics and firefighters are called. Both when they show up ask me and my friends if we were in the other girl's car, probably since we're acting relatively normal and unhurt, and the other three are acting like this was a major catastrophe. My engine is shot and my airbags have gone off. Their car is nowhere near as bad of condition. Paramedics seemed annoyed to have to come check on these girls who turned out to be completely fine, but maybe that was just me extrapolating. We tell the paramedics all about our injuries. They tell us to go get those checked out and leave without looking at us at all. The mother is being pretty bitchy for lack of a better word, but I don't realize this until later because the accident is so clear-cut, and it's so obvious that her daughter is at fault that I don't realize she's trying to shift all the blame onto me, repeatedly saying, "when he hit her." And at one point she says, "Well, there are cameras, so we'll see what really happened." It didn't even occur to me until after that she was insinuating that I was a liar, because I just thought, yeah, the cameras will show that her daughter caused the accident. Obviously. The cop tells us that they're live feed cameras, so they may not have actually picked up a recording, but I'm still feeling pretty confident about the details of the situation. At this point, the tow truck has shown up and the situation is winding down, and my girlfriend reminds me that before we leave with a friend who's coming to bring us home, I still need to get this girl's registration and insurance info. So I go up to the girl and her mother and ask to get that information. This other guy who showed up, I think he was an older brother of one of the girls, reminds me that I gave them my insurance but not my registration. So of course, I'm like, "Oh yeah, let me get that for you." They take a photo of my registration. They now have all the information I could possibly give them. I ask the mother for her info. She asks me if I want to take a photo of her license plate. I'm like, yeah, I guess that's a good idea, and I do. Then I ask again to see her registration and insurance card. She refuses, says they'll be in the police report. I say I know they'll be in the police report, but I'd like to get them now so I can file an insurance claim. I would expect if she wants all my documents, she should be willing to give hers in return. But she says no again, gets in her car and closes the door on me. I ask the cop for her insurance info just in case, and she tells me she's not legally allowed to give me that, and I'll have to wait for the report. We went home. I filed an insurance report today. The car is totaled to no one's surprise. I've been in car accidents before, and I've even been in an accident where I had to file through insurance. And I understand that you're not supposed to admit fault even if you caused it. But this is the first accident I've ever been in where the other party straight up lied about what happened. I'd only had the car for a year and a half, and I still had $6,000 left to pay off on it. Just the more I think about it retrospectively, the more it pisses me off. All 3 of us who were in my car got injured. None of the other girls in the other car did. My car is totaled, theirs isn't. I was going straight, she was making a left. And her mother has the audacity to blame me for it and called me a liar when she wasn't even there to see what happened. Her daughter messed up my car and my body and my finances, and she wants her to get off with no consequences. I just can't imagine my parents ever sticking up for me like that in a situation where I was so clearly at fault. I just needed to vent about this in proper detail. My girlfriend went to the doctor today and they told her she has whiplash and prescribed her muscle relaxers. I'm hoping that this can get settled through insurance because the evidence is clearly not in their favor, and I doubt they'll be happy with the insurance outcome. Performer didn't realize I was the manager. Some years ago, my partner and I managed a bar, and we had live acts every Friday night. We had inherited a few bookings from the previous managers, but we honored the bookings. One night we had a comedian who before us had performed regularly at the bar. Anyway, at the time I dressed like a student and had long dyed hair. The regulars all knew I was the manager and had no problems with my appearance. The comedian starts his act and spots me collecting glasses and proceeds to complain about students, how lazy they are. Look at this one, can't get a proper job, what's with their hair, etc. No laughter, so he carries on laying into me. I smile and continue working. After the set, I walk over to give him his cash, and he's already got more dates to book with us. The joy is I said, "No thanks, I'm the manager and I will never book you again." Watching his face fall was beautiful. Anyway guys, that's going to be all for today. Thank you for watching, I appreciate it. And if you enjoyed, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already for more Reddit stories. So take care and I'll see you next time.